Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We have a guest blade today. This came by way of my friend Tacticow, and I will link to his YouTube channel. He is a collector of very high-end custom knives, and so you'll be able to see some really cool stuff over there, as well as his Instagram. Now, he reached out and he offered to send me a knife that was here in the US to get refurbished. And I have said no to many offers as of the last 6 months to a year, just because time and energy and financial risk and shipping and just it's a lot of stress, a lot of work, and I've got a lot of that going on just in my normal job right now. But this knife in particular is from a maker who has intrigued me just due to my lack of information for a long time. The maker we're going to look at is DB Fraley. A U.S. custom maker. He's flown under the radar for a number of years, at least among those of us who have come up kind of in the social media generation. He's certainly well known on the forums, specifically the USN forums. So I had seen his name, I had seen his knives for years and years and years, and I knew absolutely nothing about him. And so that was the only reason I took this one in, is because it would essentially force me to do a video. So I did have a conversation with Derek, he primarily goes by DB, just about who he is, where he came from, what he makes, how often he makes them, and kind of all those details. So again, this will be more about the maker than the knife in front of us per se. But let's look at it. So it is a full Damascus build here. And so I apologize, there will be fingerprints on this thing. It does have his Lost Souls pocket clip and backspacer. It is a flipper. It uses S35VN, and this model is the Torrent. So definitely a dressy piece. Dressier than anything you guys have seen me own. Yeah, I've never had a full Damascus frame lock, so but a lot of nice details. It's a well-built knife, has a great action. By way of specs, S35VN blade. It does have a hand rub satin that follows the grind lines, the recurve, instead of just straight across, so that is fairly interesting. Hopefully the camera's showing that. There's his logo. He is located in Dixon, California, which is what did he tell me? South of Sacramento, but north of San Francisco. And again, full Damascus, 440C bearings. So stainless steel bearings, a stainless steel detent, really large flipper tab. Action is really nice. Got some really nice checkering in here on the lock bar cutout that certainly makes it easy to get to. Carries well, pocket clip is functional. Obviously this thing is, Damascus is a full mirror polished material before you take it to a torch. And here's his Lost Souls backspacer. So he is he does everything essentially by hand. He has a manual mill that he uses, and then, like Dremels to create kind of this Lost Soul pattern and so forth. So a lot of handwork in his builds, of course. He did buy a CNC machine, but he doesn't know how to use it, and so it just sits there. So now that we've hopefully, well, okay, let's do some high def, and then I will get into who he is as a maker, because that was, again, my primary interest. Alright, so now let's get into who he is as a maker. So he's been making knives since 1992. Really what got him into knives was his father, who was a large collector. And back in the 70s, there was actually a really hot knife scene in the Bay Area of California, so kind of San Francisco and the surrounding cities. Now, his father, being interested in knives, ended up buying a grinder, buying materials, all the trappings to be a knife maker, but he just never took the plunge, wasn't able to commit. So his dad's construction company sent his father to Hawaii. So Derek, or DB, took ownership of all the equipment. He thought, you know what, I'll start doing this, but again, he didn't. But then he also took a job at the same construction company, ended up in Hawaii, and there he had the chance to work with Stan Fujisaka. Again, kind of an old school maker who attended the Bay Area shows, and he learned to understand how to make the knives, and then moved back to California, and he's been a part-time maker for roughly 20 years. So again, the San Jose Bay Area, it was at one time a really cool scene. There was the Bay Area Knife Collectors Association, so the BACA show, San Jose show. Some of the prolific makers were, again, Stan Fujisaka, David Pitt, among others. And again, those, I'm not too familiar with those people. These guys are pre kind of social media, so if you guys have been around for a long time, perhaps you know about them. But anyways, that's kind of how he ended up being a knife maker. Now, his primary job was a power line guy for about 24 years. He recently switched to project management, but he does plan to hopefully retire in 4 years, and at that point, he'll go from being a part-time maker to, who knows, maybe a 3/4 time or a full-time knife maker. So hopefully we will see him a little bit more active on social media at that point. He does have an Instagram account, which I'll link, but he primarily lurks. He's not really posting a whole lot of pictures. So I did encourage him to try to be more active there, but that's a place that, again, he might become more active now, or perhaps when he retires in 4 years. So, he started making knives. Some of these knives, pictures ended up on the USN forum, the Usual Suspects Network forum, which is a great forum for knife collecting. And essentially what happened was in 2008, when he started getting some notoriety on the forum, his people started jumping on his books, and he became backlogged from 2008 all the way until 2020. Here we are in 2020, and he still has an additional 3 years worth of backlog to get through. So a good problem, but a busy problem. And so he's been really kind of working through those books and trying to get all those builds out to people. These days, he just kind of builds what he wants along the most lines, reaches out to who's next in line and says, hey, is this something you want? So this is the Torrent model. He also has the Deluge, the Monsoon, the Splinter, the Shamal. And he makes knives. He's a lot more open to what you'd like than some makers, again, assuming that he is building exactly to your specs, but he makes knives anywhere from 3.5-inch blades all the way up to 5-inch blades. So this is the smaller among his sizes, but if you really like big knives, maybe you'll find one of his 5-inch blade folders somewhere out there. Also, a few years ago, he did a production collaboration with Riot. There are a few pictures of that on his Instagram, and he does have some of those still available. So again, if you're looking at this and thinking, hey, I really dig that design, or I kind of dig his aesthetics, you can reach out to him and still pick up one of the production collabs, and he's charging a pretty fair, like $300 if you want to get one of those. I don't know how many he has left, but again, it's a way to kind of get your hands on his work without waiting, possibly 4 years or longer, or having to track something down the secondary, or having to pay a lot of money. So best way to get in contact with DB here is via email, so I'll put that down in the description box as well. But again, the interest here is just that I've seen the name, I've seen the knives over the years. Some of the collectors who've been around for a longer time and have fairly large collections seem to typically have had or currently own one of his models. So, by way of just kind of general commentary, this one did just come back from a spa treatment or a refurbish, and obviously it's in perfect condition right now, but action's good. Ergonomics are nice and comfortable. While it's a huge flipper tab, it definitely serves as a pretty nice forward guard. The Timascus is finished nicely, and even though I'm touching it, it doesn't seem to be as prone to fingerprints as some of the other finishing methods that are out there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then I do like the kind of the lost souls. That's something he started doing for fun, and then every order it's essentially required. So he does a lot of these now, and again primarily done by hand. So anyways, that's DB. He did go. I mean, obviously all the shows are canceled this year, 2020, but he was at Blade Show West the last 2 years as a lurker. He just kind of wandering around checking that out. So anyways, that's who he is. Part-time maker for 20 years. That may change in a couple years. Again, primarily on the USN forum, but lurking a little bit on social media. So yeah, very cool. I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like I need to learn more about Stan Fujisaka or David Pitt or some of these other guys from the 70s. But it's really cool to kind of see the history and how things have evolved, and it's kind of sad to hear that there was, again, a prolific scene in the Bay Area at one point, and now not so much. I mean, don't want to talk about politics, but I don't even know how well a show would do up there if they'd be allowed to find a location. Obviously, the New York show is no longer in New York because they're no longer able to host shows in that area, and so they've had to move further south. But anyways, so that was my interest. That's who DB Fraley is. This is the torrent, and yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Again, if you guys have more information to add or more comments, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. If you've never heard of him, hopefully this is a good introduction, and hopefully we'll see more from him in the future as he becomes more active on social media these days. So, all right, we will leave it there. You can follow me on Instagram for more daily content. You can follow my buddy Tactical, who collects the customs. You can even follow DB Fraley. So a lot of fun things to keep you busy. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.